For a few startled moments I did not move. I just lay there in a fetal position with my eyes wide open and my eyelashes still. Finally I crawled and stumbled into my bathroom, then stood up and attempted to wash my face. The medicine cabinet mirror would not allow me to forget the previous night. I knew I was in deep trouble. I went to pick up the phone and realized it was off the hook. Once I got a dial tone, I started to dial 911, but ended up calling a taxi instead. It was only later, at Howard University Hospital, seated in the busy emergency room among gunshot victims and drug addicts, that I realized I wanted to live. Why I wanted to live was not quite clear, but I knew that I must live. My suicide attempt the night before had been unsuccessful for a reason. Some of my recollections of the days preceding my attempt are a blur. I remember being overwhelmed by hopelessness and the feeling of how badly I wanted to die and be forgotten. I wanted to join my several close friends who had gone on before me. I wanted to be released from all the loneliness, feelings of shame and despair, the pain I felt but couldn't describe. I wondered how I, once described by a college professor as a young man of unlimited promise, could end up trying to take my own life. Was it because I was a black man living in America? Was it because I was gay? Or was it because I was a gay black man who was living in a world that had a problem with both? I've never had a problem being black, and on most of my days have taken great pride in that fact. I know that being light-skinned has given me a few advantages not enjoyed by every African American, but at the same time I have to admit that I've sometimes felt a little disconnected from other African Americans, like I didn't quite belong, that I hadn't suffered in the same ways of many who had come before me and therefore wasn't black enough. Once, when I was about 9 years old, I asked my mother if my cousin, Charles Jr., who shares the same skin color as mine, and I were white. She gave me a, "Boy, you must be crazy," look, and suddenly burst out laughing and said, "No, boy, you and Charles Jr. ain't white." It wasn't that I wanted to be white, but I could look and see that our skin color was different from my sister's and most of my cousins. For some reason, I still felt different, and as a young boy, I had no way of explaining why. As a child, I only knew that if it wasn't my color, then what could it be? I don't recall the exact day I discovered I was gay or different. When I was young, I always felt that it was something that only God and I knew, that it was our little secret and made me feel closer to Him. Still, being gay was the one thing about me that I prayed constantly that God would change. He didn't. I am a black, gay man. Years ago, it would have caused me great pain to even write the word gay on paper to describe myself. I have cried more tears than the rivers can hold because of the word gay. Early in my career as a novelist, no matter the subject matter that I was writing about, I would dodge questions about my sexuality. Maybe because there is so much more to describe me. Still, each day that I am alive, I become a little more self-assured and comfortable in my body. My healing process has been aided by saying what I know to be true. Writing has allowed me to change my self-hatred and doubt into true self-esteem and self-love. My prayers have changed out of absolute necessity so that I could fully enjoy the second half of my life. After several months of intensive daily therapy, I returned to Little Rock, Arkansas, the city in which I was raised. My doctor thought it would be helpful in assisting with my recovery from my illness. At first, I was afraid the trip might cause my depression to deepen, but I traveled back home despite my reservations. On that trip, I visited my grandmother, Bessie Harvey, the rock of my family, who was living in a high-rise retirement home. When I was young, I called it the old folks' home, but my grandma didn't appear old to me despite the fact that she was in her 80s. Neither she nor my mother knew of my suicide attempt, and when I told them I had been sick, I think they naturally assumed I had AIDS. I quickly volunteered the fact that I didn't. They had reason to be concerned. especially since in the previous 2 years I had repeatedly informed them that another one of my friends under 30 had died. I told them I was taking medication and seeing a doctor regularly, and that with prayer, something they both believed in, I would be well soon. I didn't think they would understand if I told them I had been diagnosed as clinically depressed. I began to wonder if depression ran in my family. Did my mother and grandmother do what many other blacks with depression do? Simply ignore it? Were their statements of being down in the dumps or feeling blue a form of depression? During the visit, a table in the corner of my grandma's tiny studio apartment captured my attention. Covered with various knickknacks and a faux crystal candy dish, the table hosted pictures of all her children, grandchild, and great-grands, a pictorial history of our family. One picture stood out. In the middle of the table, in a dusty silver frame, there was a sepia-colored photo of a little boy. He looked about 2 years old. Smiling with tiny teeth, he had lively teddy-bear brown eyes and dark sandy-colored hair, neatly parted. He looked happy, like he didn't have a care in the world. "Grandma, who's this?" I asked as I picked up the picture to inspect it closer. "Let me see, baby," she said as she reached for her glasses. But before I showed the picture to her, it dawned on me that the little boy in the photo was me. I stood transfixed, looking at the picture and wondering if I was ever really that happy, and if so, whether I could ever be that happy again. It has been more than 12 years since that afternoon. My grandma has since gone on to glory in her rewards. My success as a novelist has allowed me to experience the happiness I saw in the eyes of my childhood photo. There have been amazing days and nights in my life that I couldn't have even dreamed of myself. I've also experienced disappointments. I realize that I live in a world that constantly reminds me that being black can sometimes be unacceptable, and that I am a member of a race many of whom consider my sexuality inappropriate. I understand that no matter how much I have accomplished since that night in Washington, D.C., filmmakers and movie studios aren't rushing to make my life story a feature film or even a movie of the week. In many ways, writing saved my life. It's my hope that sharing my experience will give hope to others who are learning to deal with their difference. I want them to know that they don't have to live their lives in a permanent, don't ask, don't tell existence. Truth is a powerful healing tool. But my hope for this book doesn't stop there. I think there is a message here for anyone who has ever suffered from a lack of self-esteem, felt the pain of loneliness, or sought love in all the wrong places. The lessons I have learned are not limited to race, gender, or sexual orientation. Anyone can learn from my journey. Anyone can overcome a broken heart. This story, my story, is a voyage of seeking joy and simply being human. And unlike my novels, in which I can always craft a happy ending, here in the real world, happy endings can't be plotted and penned with colorful words packaged inside covers with beautiful people adorning them. In sharing my story, it is my hope that readers will see glimpses of their own life and then bring about their own happy endings, by living one day at a time, discovering their true passions, and realizing that every life is a story worth telling. This is my story.